there are some things that are private that are best off remaining private. A good example being what adults do in the privacy of their own bedrooms. I've got no interest in that whatsoever. And I certainly don't hate gay people, nor am I afraid of gay people. But what I do think is wrong is the sexualisation of children by adults for their own benefit. Vehemently opposed to that. Whether that's done by heterosexual adults or homosexual adults, it's the same thing. I'm opposed to the sexualisation of children. Leave the kids alone and don't deprive children of their childhood. So I recently, well, it was yesterday actually, I had a chat with a couple of musicians who also share this view. They're opposed to the sexualisation of children, and they spoke out about it. And as a consequence of that, they had gigs cancelled at various venues. So what follows is a chat with these two people, and we don't just talk about well, one of the things that we talk about is the whole issue of cancellation and the type of people that are into regulating what can and can't be said. So these are kind of PC, what I call PC authoritarians. And then towards the end of the conversation, we talk about what happened during the People's Pantomime and why it happened. So without more of ado, here's the interview with Daniel and Eliza from Wrong Think Records. Their band is called Whombyfire. I should have asked them what that meant anyway. I'm sure it means something. Anyway, without more of ado, here's the interview. So God bless, and Hyvää viikonloppua, because it's Friday again. God bless. Whombyfire, is that right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Good morning.
And you've set up a record label called Wrong Think Records. So I don't know who's going to take. I don't know how you do this. Who's going to answer the questions? But so, what made you set up Whombyfire and this record label, Wrong Think Records?
So Eliza and I have been playing together for a number of years as a band. Last year we were informed we were due to play at a few gigs, and we were informed that we were gonna be cancelled. And it turned out it was for speaking out against the sexualisation of children. Right. And since then, we've had a number of other shows being targeted by LGBT activists trying to get our shows cancelled. So off the back of that, we've realised that there's lots of other artists who may be in a similar position to us, and also some artists who are afraid to speak out, afraid to get the cancellation. So we're trying to encourage other artists to, be brave, use their freedom of speech, and just to be supportive of them, because it can be like quite a scary place when you're in the receiving end of a cancellation, or just so some of the abuse that you get with it, like being called a Nazi sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, honestly, that applies to all of us, doesn't it? Not just musicians. But when did you actually form the band then? How long have you been working with each other?
Well, Eliza,
over 20 years.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
20 years.
Okay. So
consistently, Dan and I, with other members thrown in the mix every now and then. Yeah.
So, what sort of music was your music? I don't know. Forgive me for asking sort of silly questions, but prior to 2020, were you? What type of music were you making now? Was it sort of? I'm going to use a horrible word here, political. But was there a deep? What was your music about? Was there a spiritual angle to it, or what were you trying to communicate with your music?
Yeah, our music's not political at all, really. I would say like our music is about sort of love, loss, redemption, freedom. Yeah, we haven't really had any songs that are seen as political, I think. Although we do, I mean, I've got some strong views about certain subjects, and I know Eliza has as well, but we don't really use our band as a platform for that. That's not to say we wouldn't use it, but we just haven't felt the urge to do that.
I was just curious, really. So because I've always been interested in music, you know, not as somebody who goes and watches, and somebody who used to spend a lot of money on CDs and vinyl, and I think I was kind of aware prior to 2020 just how difficult it was for musicians to make money. You know, because I'm 59, so you know, but you know, when I was at 18 or whatever, or in my 20s, it was quite easy for musicians in that, you know, you could set up an independent record label, you could create vinyl, and make money from your music pretty easily. But then when the digital came along, it just, you know, basically people could rip your music off the internet or wherever, file sharing sites. So gigging became very, very important, I would imagine, for musicians.
Yeah.
So, you know, being cancelled these days is very, very difficult for musicians because you're actually removing that final source of earning a living. So,
absolutely.
Any comments on that?
Yeah, I would agree. It's definitely the case, especially as now things are becoming much harder for musicians. Just generally, it's a whole DIY project if you're going to become a musician. It's not, you're not relying on anyone else other than yourself. All the production, the advertising, everything is rooted in your band. So it is like a little small business that you've got. And relying on gigs from an early age. I mean, we when we first started, it was just endless amount of gigs, just constantly gigging. And it's definitely declined through the years of us gigging. There's been certain places that have been consistent and regular venues that have been really great to us. But yeah, like you said, it has declined a lot, and the cancellation, obviously.
So do you want to do a bit of naming and shaming about which venues cancelled you, and the type of communication that you had with them?
Yeah. So the first instance was a festival called Lee Folk Festival in Essex. It's a festival that's been going for I think 37 years, pretty much non-stop, apart from during the lockdowns. We've played there a number of years, and it's always, you know, been well received, that sort of thing. So they were the first people to cancel us. They didn't really give us a proper explanation. It was just a few days before we were supposed to perform. Then the second one was...
Sorry, can I just interrupt there? Right. So did they phone you up, or did they email you, or how did
it was an email?
Right. And what did the email say? Sorry, Dan and Eliza, your booking's being cancelled, or was it as brief as that, or?
It was a little bit more than that. They said it was due to social media remarks, and then they put out some statement about standing with the LGBT community.
So that was good in the sense that they were honest about it. What I would say to people watching this video is boycott. We must do counter boycotts. This is going to be my only idea in this interview, really. Is that we must do counter boycotts. So if they're cancelling you, well, then what I urge music fans in the UK to do is to cancel these festivals.
Well, it's quite interesting, actually, Nigel, because there was quite a local backlash against the festival decision, and it made like some of the national news as well. And interestingly, I mean, as I said, this festival's been going for, I think, 37 years virtually without a break. And we found out recently that the festival's not going ahead this year due to some of their sponsors pulling out. So yeah, I think it may be something to do with their treatment of us, and you know,
how sad though. How sad.
It's sad,
At this festival, but you know, it was an
Mm.
incredible festival, very independent. It brought in lots of different artists from around the country.
Mm.
Really, really sad that it's come to this. You know, that another music festival is.
Yeah, but I think the other side to it is that we've got to stand up to these people, and
yeah,
I'm not into folk music myself, but I'm not going to spend my money with any organisation that pursues like an anti-human agenda that's well, let's call it out for what it is. That's evil, basically.
Yeah. I mean, my suggestion to the festival would be, if they want to organise one next year, do a folk festival and not a woke festival, and I think it'd be a lot more successful.
Yeah.
Eliza, you wanted to say something. You started and you stopped. But...
Yeah, no, it's okay. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
so do you want to say about the other cancellations and what happened?
Yeah, so the other one was actually a church, which is again really sad. And that was at St. Mark's, again, a place that we have played before. We were putting on our own event, and again, about probably a week before we were due to play there, we got a message on Facebook. So it wasn't an email, it was much more personable in terms of the message, from the vicar of St. Mark's, saying that, that they had to pull us from it.
So whereabouts is this church then, Eliza?
It's just local. It's just on the outskirts of Westcliff, just in Southend.
Okay, right. So St. Mark's in Southend then, just so
St. Mark's, Southend. Yeah.
But I think with the churches, they've destroyed themselves, haven't they? They're not preaching Christianity, real Christianity. They've gone down the Justin Welby route, and
I mean, this church has got a very a very high trans community, LGBTQ community within their church community.
Wow.
They put on pride events there, and they host pride events and do drag story time, things like that.
Wow.
In the church itself, not necessarily the church hall or anything.
Well, I don't know. Like, forgive me. I've read the Bible a few times. I've not really encountered anything about, like, there wasn't any like trans story time accounts of that going on in the Bible. I don't know. Just seems a bit. Wow. Because where I am in Finland is a lot less. It's a lot less woke. When I hear stuff like this, I'm just. Call me naive, but I'm just shocked. Really, it's just how things have changed.
I mean, one of the events, they had a drag queen story time last year, and I found out about it after the event. But we saw some photos, and the drag performer they had was wearing like really skimpy clothes, and and this really young children, like literally right in front of the act. So it was like really inappropriate. And then they had one recently for I think they called it Winter Pride this year.
Just cutting in there, Dan. Just Now, if this was, let's say, I don't know, heterosexual, so suppose you had the same sort of thing going on, people, a man and a woman dressed with hardly any clothes on, doing I don't know what sexual stuff in front of little kids. Well, that wouldn't be acceptable, would it?
No.
I hope not, anyway.
No.
But things have just gone so bonkers.
I mean, I would say though, in terms of the church side of things, another local church, St Andrew's in Westcliff, which is like my childhood church. They really stood up to the plate, and they invited us to play there. So we were able to
oh, that's good.
Our music to another local church, and they've been incredibly supportive to us. We're going to be putting on another event there soon. So yeah,
no, that's
so
that's great to hear. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
And do you know who's doing the communication with the venues to get you cancelled? Do you have any idea about who it is?
Well, we have an inkling. It's Southend Pride that are doing it, that are targeting it. They did make reference to the trans community in one of their messages, saying that well, actually, didn't they get an email from someone?
Yeah, they've had I think they've had multiple emails, but we were told it was specifically from Southend Pride.
Yeah. And it was basically threatening. It was threatening the church, wasn't it? Really, saying that if you put whombyfire on, then the trans community are going to be very upset about this, and basically we're not going to hold our events.
This is what these people do, though. You know, I used to be a teacher, so I used to work with some of these people. I actually call them PC authoritarians, politically correct authoritarians. So you know, they wouldn't be out of place in 1930s Germany, basically, in terms of they're book burners. Anything that they find offensive, they're the arbiters of normality, of what can and can't be said, and anything they don't like, they just want to destroy it. But like, do you know, again, like many of these people, they are cowardly, so they'll hide. So do you know which individuals in this organization are actually kind of the movers and shakers? Who's actually doing it as individuals?
I don't know, but you've got your suspicions, haven't you?
Yeah. They don't normally own up to it directly, or never really own up to it directly. So I think they're just hiding behind the Pride umbrella. We've asked actually to like have a sit down and to talk to them about it, because you know, we realize that sometimes, you know, views can get sort of inflamed over social media, that sort of thing, but we've been told that they have a policy that they will not discuss these matters.
That's entirely consistent with this type of mindset, in that they only do one-way communication, which is them telling you why you're wrong and trying to impose kind of sanctions, or, as you say, Eliza, threats. You know, you better do what we tell you to do. But again, pure Nazism, really. You know, it's exactly what Hitler's Nazis did. It was their way or the highway. And these people have got exactly the same mindset.
And the ironic thing is we're getting called out as being bigots and Nazis in all of this.
Yeah, well,
that's the irony of it.
Yeah, psychologists call that projection. So you know what you are yourself. You don't like it, so you project your weaknesses onto other people and accuse other people of the very thing that you are yourself. But do you know where did they get their dough from?
So they're a registered charity. So they get money from that. So they're not really, the way they're conducting themselves, they're not really conducting themselves as a charity, because they shouldn't be able to just sort of act with complete impunity and go around trying to get local acts and businesses cancelled if they don't go along with the Pride rhetoric.
Yeah, I agree. What I'm saying here, Daniel, is that if you can find out where they get their money from as a charity, that could be another vehicle where you can kind of fight back against these people, oppose them by cutting off their sources of funding. Because I think many, you might be surprised, as I used to teach economics, so it was on there was a section on like overseas development, so the topic of aid. I had to do like a little bit of research on it, and what's really interesting these days is that many charities get most of their money from the government.
So
it might be quite it might. I don't know if you remember a charity. It was completely dodgy called Kids Company.
No.
Oh dear.
It's this. It was headed up by this lady called Camilla Batman Gelly, and she
Yeah.
wore all like and it was all sorts of dodgy stuff that
Yeah.
went on there. But most of that money that funded that charity came from the UK government.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So
We
that
should
Yeah.
really look into it.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think that might be
Mm.
and then you basically write letters to see if you can get the newspapers involved on your side, or
Yeah.
do counter demonstrations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. Get petitions, like the idea of doing petitions as well.
Yeah. So what other things have you sort of done to like oppose these guys?
Do you mean in their eyes or?
Well, either.
So we've done since then we've done a few interviews about what's happened, and I think actually like one of those interviews in particular was resulted in us being cancelled again, actually, because they used that as evidence of us supporting anti-queer rhetoric. So basically, I mean, I speak out as much as I can. If I see something dodgy happening, I feel like, you know, I've got a moral duty really to speak out about it. So I think, you know, it's not just pride and LGBT things that I speak out about. It's like if I see anything like really morally bad, I'll speak out about it. But I think Southend Pride and the Rainbow Mafia, I call them, I think they've actually been the most nasty when it comes to like trying to sort of shoot down any counter argument to their rhetoric.
Yeah. See, I'm a sort of a free speech absolutist. So
Yeah.
you know, I believe that people should have in a free society, and people should be free to express honestly held opinions.
Yeah.
And this whole thing about hate, again, I'm you know, because I'm 59. So growing up as a kid, I just remember being drunk by my dad in particular. They used to say it at school as well. You know, that old saying of sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me.
Yeah.
And then, you know, all of a sudden, I think I remember being one of the raising this when I was at school, and Tony Blair first came in with those initial hate speech laws. I could see how those hate speech laws were gonna end, which is basically what we're getting now, which is if you criticize the government or go against any of their narratives, that's instantly deemed as being hate speech.
Yes. Yeah.
So how do you think we got here? Why what's your theory about how or do you have a theory about how we got to where we are now?
Well, like you said there, Nigel, I think they do it in very small steps. If they took a large step, and you know, if they did it over sort of like a year, people would see it happening. So I don't think, you know, they do it so slowly that it's like the frog being slowly boiled alive, I think.
Yeah.
The subtlety
of
it.
So what are your plans next then? How are you going to try and take things forward?
Well, whilst we've received you know, some cancellations, it's actually seemed like every door that's been closed, there's another one that's been opened, and that's with people that have been really supportive. So we've had some good opportunities, and we've started working with another company as well who have been supportive to our music. So we're releasing an album this month. So if people want to support us, they can buy our album, and it's a physical album. What we've also done, that's our album. What we've also done, though, we've decided to start our own record label called Wrong Think Records, and we'd like it to be a platform for other artists as well as ourselves who are passionate about freedom of speech. And we just want people to know that, you know, that there will be people out there who will support them if they say something that might be a bit unfashionable or a bit anti-PC. And I think just to try and be to be a bit braver and like to take that step, and you know, because it's quite daunting, but I think there's enough people that care about freedom of speech, who will support you. And I just think, you know, you've got a moral duty to like speak out if you see something wrong, like you have to do it.
I think again, just you know, from my point of view as a teacher, the issue of freedom of speech, it's just not discussed in schools at all. Apart from something like sloganeering, you know, which, to be honest, even now I think they'd probably struggle to get away with it. But maybe sort of like 10 years ago, a school might say, oh, well, you know, we're really great, but in China they don't have freedom of speech. And that's about as deep as it would get. But, you know, my feeling is that if there are parents watching this, you have a moral duty to talk to your kids and educate them about why freedom of speech is important.
Yeah, definitely. And also not to wait until it actually affects you. Start speaking out before, when you're seeing people that you love, respect, or whatever. Speak out for them before, because it will eventually hit you. So try and get out there before that happens.
I don't know. Sorry, Dan. Go on.
No, I was just going to say, like, going on from what Eliza said there, like we often get questioned, like, oh, why do you care about these things? And I think the question should be is like, why don't you care about these things?
And
because they've been programmed by schools basically not to care about it. It's a non-issue. But we actually saw that, you know, during the People's Pantomime. We actually saw all the stuff that's the products of the education system, which is shut up and just parrot the prevailing narrative. Whatever the nonsense is, your role is just to agree with it and publicly recite the nonsense.
I mean, before the People's Pantomime happened, I had certain theories about some people, and I thought, like, you're not really a very nice person, and I thought I was being maybe a bit far-fetched. And then when the People's Pantomime started happening, it's just like the worst. They just turned into the worst Nazis that you could imagine.
And I've done videos about this, from just telling people about my experiences as a teacher. But I can remember one person in particular. She did a brilliant assembly about Dietrich Bonhoeffer, this German pastor who spoke out against the German National Socialists. You know, and basically was in the end tortured and murdered by his own government. But basically, this person, you know, did a great assembly on it. It was a really good job. But then, when the People's Pantomime came along, you know, she was all for it. She was all for the authoritarianism. You know, that she couldn't understand why I was kind of upset about our basic human rights being removed without even a vote in the House of Commons.
It's bizarre.
So what was your theory anyway that you had prior to 2020 about people? That sounds quite interesting.
I just used to have these discussions with my wife before, like these sort of apocalypse style discussions about like who you could trust in the event of some apocalyptical event. And she would normally say, oh yeah, we could definitely trust them. I'd be like, no way. And
go on,
often,
tell me about how do you discern that? How do you discern that?
Yeah.
Just
I'd better be in that trust one.
yeah, you were.
Oh,
Don't
all
worry.
right, thanks. Yeah.
It was normally things about, you know, whether I had observed them to be honest, whether they were the sort of person to slag you off behind your back. Well, really, actually, I think the overall one was like whether they were the sort of person that wanted the best for you, and somebody that, you know, could think independently as well. Like I noticed that like a lot of people don't seem to be able to do that. And they're literally, you know, the only way they think is they just think what they've been told to think, really.
Yeah. And what about you, Eliza? How did you what were your feelings when when it all started in March 2020? Can you think back to how you felt at the time? And
yeah, I mean, I actually did a documentary on it, and called Conversations in Lockdown, where I interviewed Dan, obviously, and other family and friends to
where
talk
is
about
it?
their experiences. It's
Well,
online. Yeah, it's
On
online.
YouTube.
Yeah, on YouTube.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah,
Well,
it was really good.
Email me the link,
Okay, yeah, we'll do.
and I'll put
Yeah,
it.
it's
I'll
about
put it up
40
in the.
minutes.
I'll put it up in the channel description. You know, with
Oh,
your
brilliant.
links to your music YouTube and everything.
Yeah.
But
Oh, fantastic.
sorry to interrupt, Eliza. Go on.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
You did this film.
So I did this film because I thought it was really important. I knew that it was a moment in time that needed to be captured, and most importantly, I wanted to capture people's honest feelings about how it affected them being in lockdown from different viewpoints. So I spent a lot of my time doing that. And in the documentary, I sort of started by saying that when I first heard the news of the lockdown, I was actually relieved. I actually cherished that time. It meant that I could really focus on other parts of my life, and really kind of reset a lot of things as well. So for me, lockdown was a very positive, not in terms of the political narrative or any of that kind of rubbish, because I didn't believe anything of what we were being told about COVID. So that side of things was very different for me. But the actual just having time to breathe, I really cherished those times. But I knew that that was just my feelings. I knew that a lot of people were struggling and feeling the complete opposite to me, and I wanted to really hone in on those.
Just from my perspective, you know, I was deeply troubled by it when it arrived, and you know, I knew teenagers who sadly took their own lives because their exam results were going to be based on student assessment. So you had, you know, the classic highly intelligent student who would always leave it to the last minute. And they ended up getting an A-level grade that was based on their mock when they were dossing about. And you know, in Guildford, there was probably 2 or 3 young people that ended up committing suicide. You know, then of course, you know, there were people who, elderly people who became isolated. So were you not kind of like worried about the morality beyond in society? I know you said you enjoyed it, but did that thought never cross your mind?
Oh yeah, like I said, I wasn't ignorant to the fact that there was a lot of horrible, horrific things happening. But you can only go from how you experience stuff yourself. And for me, it was a very positive time in my personal life, politically speaking and everything. Yeah, completely.
Because I think that's why, looking back on it now, I think that's why it happened. Many people complied with it because they actually benefited from it. So, you know, you've described how you benefited from it, but there were people who maybe they didn't like their jobs and they got furlough. And then there were people who you know, they didn't like their commutes and they got
Mhm.
to work from home. And I think, you know, I know somebody who fraudulently claimed a £50,000 bounce back loan. So he was
Yeah.
obviously fully on board with the Coviet Union.
Yeah.
And you know, this is how it happened, I think, is
Yeah.
that it's very easy for us to blame, I don't know, Klaus Schwab or you
Yeah.
know, Boris Johnson or whoever,
Mm.
you know, the World Economic Forum, but actually
Mm.
the real blame
Yeah.
lies with us as individuals,
Mm.
that not enough of us at the time opposed the totalitarianism
Mm.
Yeah.
because we benefited from it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I
definitely.
didn't comply in terms of I didn't do that in order to go away on holiday or any of that sort of thing, because that was important to me to not comply in that respect.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, and just to make it clear for the YouTube censor, that's not medical advice. That's just something that was just a personal choice that you made.
yeah.
But yeah, it's gonna cut off in a second. So, is there anything else that you want to say in this interview before it cuts off?
Just that this record label that we started, Wrong Think Records, our first step is going to be to release a compilation album. So we're taking music submissions from other artists.
Yeah.
So if you would like to contribute something, please send it to our email, which is wrongthinkrecords@hotmail.com. The compilation will be going towards charity, so it's not going in our back pocket, unfortunately. But if you would like to support us, please buy our album.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thanks so much for coming on and giving your time, and it's been great to it's been great to speak to you both. So
Thank
you.
you.
yeah, it's going to cut off in a second. So
Okay.
God bless, and I hope things will work all right for you.
Thank you
Cheers,
very
Nigel.
much. Thanks for
Okay.
having us.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers. All the best.
Bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.